Charlie Watts has got to be the classiest, most laid-back drummer that there ever was. He's as classy as a Rolls Royce. Thank you, Charlie.
There's a fragrance that's here today, I may call it Charlie. A different fragrance that thinks your way, yeah, they call it Charlie. Kind of young, kind of now, Charlie. Kind of free, kind of wild, Charlie. Kind of fragrance that's gonna stay, and it's here now, Charlie. Charlie.
I was just watching this Rolling Stones documentary that came out on Epix. It's a 4-part series. There's the Mick episode, the Keith episode, Ronniewood, and Charlie Watts. All the episodes are really good. The Ronniewood episode and the Charlie Watts episode are the best ones. You know, they're all great. The Charlie episode, though, it's the best one. He's such an interesting guy. He's such a classy guy to be in this band of kind of scoundrels and to be such a classy, low-key guy. They show him folding his socks with tissue paper while he's on tour. I mean, who's doing that on tour, folding their socks with tissue paper? They're on the highest level of touring as you could possibly be. But still, who folds their socks with tissue paper when they're at home? So you got this like super classy guy that fits in with all these scoundrels, and it works. It's perfect. It's perfectly imperfect, which makes it perfect. The Rolling Stones, their music is so much of capturing that moment because they're not trying to perfect every song. They're not trying to get, well, you know, this guitar part's not right. Let's get it right. It's all about signing off on the take that has the magic. Not a lot of bands know how to do that or could get away with it. Because when you listen to the Stones' music, it's kind of like almost chaos going on, but it all works together perfectly. Charlie's drums are a great example of that. Because if you listen to them by themselves, they're really loose. These are the shattered drums. It's just a great feel. And it's still being super loose. I don't know how they get away with that, but when all the other instruments come in, that's Ronniewood on bass. This is such a weird bass line because it doesn't lock in really. It's like all over the place. See what I mean? That bass part very seldomly like locks in and just does the simple thing. It's going crazy the whole time. And it sounds to me like Charlie comes in on this bridge section a little bit late. So he's playing a beat, and the bridge starts, and he's intending to hit the kick drum, boof, 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 boof. But he misses it the first time around, and he catches it on the second one. That's what it sounds like to me. All y'all that are starting to get upset, I'm sorry about that. But, you know, they're taking this song in the studio. He hasn't heard it very many times, I'm sure. They're getting used to it, and they're like, okay, well, in this part here, you know, let's break it down and just do the kick drum. And when it gets to that part, he goes one too far, and then he does that part. But it all kind of makes sense when it comes out in the wash. They're like, well, that's the take. And that's what's so cool about the Stones. They're able to pinpoint, like, this was the magic take. Even though Charlie went a little bit too long on this part, it works. It's what makes it the take that you want. Let's hear it again. Right here. Maybe that was intended all along, but whenever I hear the song, that's what I think of. He missed his mark, but he saved it. It reminds me of a story that Keith Richards tells about the making of his solo album, Talk Is Cheap, and they're doing the single off that album, Take It So Hard. And the take that they get, it kind of starts out in a weird place where the drums come in. It's a little bit of a stutter step at the beginning. And Steve Jordan, the drummer on that album, is like, oh, we can do it better. And Keith's like, I don't know, I think that's the one. And so they try it and try it and try it. And they come back, they eventually settle on that one that Keith was like, no, that's going to be the one, even though it's got this kind of like weird start to it. That's what gives it its character. And he says to Steve Jordan, now you're ready to make the record. Let's check out the drums on Slave. Slave from the Tattoo You album is just like the most low down funky beat that there is across the board in the world. And Charlie's got it nailed. Now this bass line is locked in. I'm guessing this is Bill Wyman. One thing I noticed in some Stone songs is that if Charlie misses the snare and he hits the side of the snare, he hits the rim shot by accident, they'll leave it in. You don't hear that a lot. Usually if somebody misses the snare, they'll go back in and redub the snare, put it in there with Pro Tools, or back then, you know, you just crack the snare and you can somehow engineer it into the mix. But when they find that this was the take, they're like, well, he missed the snare there, but it works, let's keep it. And that's what happens here in Slave when the saxophone solo starts. Let's check it out.
Yeah, baby, yeah, baby.
So, did he do that on purpose? I don't think so. That would be the one snare hit that he left out in the whole song. I think he just missed it. And it has so much character that it drops out for a second. It's like, it almost makes it what the take is. Let's hear it again.
Yeah, baby, yeah, baby.
So a similar thing happens in the song Bitch from Sticky Fingers, which is just another just like super funky song. And the way all their parts are kind of bouncing off of each other is it's almost like chaos, but it all works together perfectly. This is the magic of the Stones. And this is why it's so hard to cover a Stones song. I mean, sure, people have covered The Last Time, it's probably the most covered song of all time. But when you get into these like 70s junkie era Stones, they're hard to emulate because you gotta have that slop in there. And it's not one guy just bringing the slop. It's all of them putting it together, and it just happens to work. It's really kind of a mystery, really.
Some kind of sexy, move like a stud, like kicking the stall all night.
Let's do it again. I keep missing it. Let's do it one more time. I think it's the third one. Fourth one. Anyway, he missed the snare. And that is the take. It makes so much sense. So now you're after we've heard the song for all these years, you don't even think twice about it when it gets to that part, if you even notice it at all, that the snare is missing right there. Because it just, that's the mastery of the Stones. They decided to keep that. And there's so many other things along the way that they decided to keep within these songs that makes it what it is. So what's the big deal, Fran? You missed the snare drum. It happens all the time. People miss the drums. Well, it's just that people don't miss the snare and then leave it in the final mix. That's what's so cool about it. These guys don't give a and that's what makes them such a cool band, They're just like, we do it the way we want to do it, and if you don't like it, that's too bad, because there's no room inside the arena tonight for you to stand anyway. It's sold out, baby. But searching my mind for other songs that have near misses on the snare, and they're hard to come by. In the Cars, my best friend's girl. That was it right there. It's coming out of the fill. Got a lot of character to it. I guess that maybe they took a cue from the Stones. All right, so we get to Miss You. We're gonna check out Miss You, which is a 4 on the floor disco era, Studio 54 jam where they're wanting to do, a disco type song. Sorry, everybody, but the Stones did it too. It's even got some shades of Do You Think I'm Sexy in there. And he's gonna miss the snare when the sax solo comes in. Ooh, sleazy, baby. It's awesome. I love how they just leave it like that. So maybe you don't need the perfect take. He's really a unique drummer because you couldn't take him out of the Stones and it still be the Stones. I mean, obviously they're on tour with Steve Jordan. He's like the only person that could probably get away with filling that spot and not trying to completely mimic Charlie. He does his own thing and it works. But you couldn't put a straight drummer, like you couldn't put John Bonham in the Stones. That's not gonna work. Maybe Ringo, but Ringo and Charlie Watts, they kind of have a similar thing. They have their own unique style that just fits that band perfectly. And you don't want somebody that is, more technical, because you want that feel. You can't replace those guys. Charlie, we love you. My name is Francapitanelli, Totally Into the Sound. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, our channel together, and we'll see you next time.